guys, and welcome to another episode of Canna Tell You Something. So this week we have Mr. Alan Dronkers with us, who is the cannabis and hemp expert from Sensi Seeds, Hempflax, and Hash Marijuana Hemp Museum, and is also the current advisor for the Thai Ministry of Agriculture and various universities in Thailand. So following up from our previous video where we showed Ira Exora, who was treated with cannabis extracts for her tumor, cavernoma tumor. Today we have a very exciting discussion for you guys to watch with Mr. Alan Dronkers, who is a professional, an expert in cannabis and hemp. So, let's get his opinion. I've known Mr. Alan Dronkers for quite a while now. I think we met in 2016, 2016. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan. Okay, so let us invite Mr. Alan. Hi, Mr. Alan, can you hear me?
Good evening, Harris. I can hear you.
Okay, thanks for being on the show with us today.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Yes, I'm happy that I can help you.
Yes, thank you.
And Malaysia also.
Yes, true. So now in Malaysia, there's we are going through a lot of challenges in sense of trying to start a research. We're trying to put up the importance of cannabis medication, even with patients like the 2-year-old girl, Ira Exora recently, in our previous video. There's a lot of people around in Malaysia who don't really understand the importance of cannabis medicine and even research for a start, because we need to understand more about what cannabis is before we do any judgment, especially if we are criminalizing it and arresting people and imprisoning them for using it as a medicine. So today, if you don't mind, Mr. Allen, I have 5 questions for you, and if you don't mind to start off today with the first question, could you please give a short introduction about yourself and what do you do?
I basically grew up in the Netherlands, and my father was an entrepreneur, basically somebody with good ideas about this plant, but was completely misunderstood in his time. But because of what he did, I ended up still being in school, but after school taking care of cannabis plants. And the reason is that my father found out that it was legal to produce hemp seeds, cannabis seeds. And so by law, we could do breeding and we were allowed to have a company selling seeds. And about 10 years later, we started the first big industrial hemp company in Europe called Hempflax. So this was more about fiber and all the industrial uses. And the reason that we came to this is that when my father started this seed company, at the same time, we opened the Hash and Marijuana Hemp Museum in Amsterdam. So we created a center for knowledge, basically for education. And because of that, we studied history. Especially me, I'm really love history. So I studied all the books about cannabis. And not only that, we knew about law, we knew about politics, we knew about all the many uses. And in this museum, we were we were able to communicate information that was before internet time. So from that background, we started our hemp business also, and like this, we became pioneers in the whole industry. So for me, it goes back almost 40 years, and I was lucky also to meet many experts and people that teach and educated me in various fields. So with that knowledge, today in the country where I live now with my family in Thailand, I'm able to help and educate also, even though I have no business or any, you know, association with business here in Thailand. So because of that, I can be independent and work for the Ministry of Agriculture and some universities like the one Ratchapat in Chiang Mai, but also the Technical University with Mahanakhon in Bangkok, and some others that yeah, I've been teaching. I do this as a to help the country, to be of service. And the same thing in Laos. I've been visiting many government officials and people in Laos to explain about cannabis and the history and the background and the reason why it's important to change the view and prepare for a system where you create safe access for patients. And the same thing in Malaysia. In fact, I lived 6 months myself in Malaysia, and my father is living there many years already. I was lucky also to talk to one of the ministers a couple of years ago, and my father have been visited many more. And again, you know, it's first of all, it's a service to the country, and let's not forget, if you like, you had an example about this little girl suffering. There's an enormous amount of people suffering in many countries in the world that could basically find direct help from cannabis medicine. And this is why I'm yeah, going around and advising. It starts storming here. I'm sorry for that.
No, no problem. Yeah, no problem.
So, but, with this, I was able to do again something that I didn't do for a long time in Europe. Is educate, is help, because patients, people that have no access, they are suffering and they cannot wait, they don't have time. So if I can be somehow of service that we can speed up the process or to create this safe access, then I'm there to help, first of all. And the beautiful thing for me and my family is that many years ago, people thought that we were strange, you know, and they couldn't understand you could do something legal with this plant. And if you said that that it was also a medicine, they laughed at us because, you know, it was like you're somehow crazy. And the reality is that today is that science knows that we were right with a lot of this information, and so we should not waste too much time. It's for patients there is no time. Yes.
Yes. Okay, thanks, Alan. Actually, you know, you gave two very important points that I want to point out. You know, knowing your history and education. I think, you know, it is a privilege to have you on the show today, because you can speak about, you know, you have a museum, and I'm sure you know the history of cannabis more better than anyone else, because of your experience of over 40 years in cannabis industry. So an important thing that MASA, our organization, is trying to do is trying to educate the public. So we are a non-profit organization who's doing this education, you know, for free, so that people will be able to understand what is cannabis and, you know, how is it used in many countries today. You know, especially like in Thailand, in the Netherlands, for example, who have used cannabis for many years. You know, I'm sure you know, a lot of people have visited to Amsterdam and tried cannabis there themselves, you know, Malaysians. So with such rich history of cannabis use, I mean, originating from India and many other countries in Southeast Asia, do you have a little bit to share about cannabis history here in Malaysia or our neighboring countries like Thailand, or what, which could enlighten the people who are viewing today about, you know, hemp and possibly medical cannabis?
Oh, sure. You know, in fact, I shouldn't be the one educating any Asian people here, because the history of cannabis in medicine in Asia is very well established and goes very far back for many thousands of years. If we look at Chinese medicine, we talk about 6,000 years. And if we talk about Indian medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, it's the same thing. And if we look at Buddhist medicine, we see also that medicine was a very important part of society and of this of religion. The temples of Buddhism here in Thailand, many of them were the hospitals before. And it's beautiful that the country Thailand can rediscover its own traditional medicine and then apply this to today. So it is not only that it makes cannabis available as a medicine in a modern sense, but also they rediscover their own traditional recipes and are going to make this available to the public within this form. And Malaysia had the same kind of history. You had your own traditional medicine people before Western medicine came around and started to dominate.
Yes, and I'm sure cannabis was circulating all around Malaysia and all of these Southeast Asian countries at the time before it was prohibited, especially before 1937, right? So, okay, we'll just move on to the next question. So the second question would be, based on the variety of strains that you have, could you name a few that are specifically grown for treating a disease? Because from what I understand, if I could explain briefly, there's many strains that can be used for treating different diseases, or even, for example, cancer. There is certain strains that can kill colon cancer cells, and there are certain strains that can kill what they call other types of cancer cells, which is because of the compounds in it, because there's over 400 different active compounds per each plant, somewhat plus or minus. So could you give us a bit of a history of what type of strains that you have within your companies or your experience that is able to treat a disease specifically?
No, not so as such. We find out now that we start to single out certain cannabinoids that they have their own specific effects. But in general, you could say that the medical effects are still most of all THC also. So it is not only the CBD variety that we call hemp today and is going to be grown as hemp, but it's also this other variety. And yes, there is single components that have specific effects, but we see that in general patients want a full spectrum plant extracts. So we see that if something is very purified, the medical effects are sometimes not there, or even it makes patients feel uncomfortable. So yeah, what we have experienced and see also in the markets where these products are used over a longer time already, that whole spectrum, so that means the whole spectrum of what is coming out of the flower of the plant is going into the medicine. And why? Because there's a whole group of active ingredients that together have something we call the entourage effect. And we know this already for a very long time, because it was in the 1980s that there was already synthetic THC produced and made in tablets, and it made patients feel horrible. So and why? Because again, it is a symphony of substances which have these effects that are in the end not only medical but also pleasant. So when you really ask me, what do patients prefer? Well, they prefer not only something that works good for what effect they want to have, either pain or cancer. In the end, they want to feel good. And so the most popular varieties with many patients were also popular varieties with recreational cannabis use. And again, you know, singling out certain cannabinoids is definitely very interesting, but we see that the medical effects is most of the time a symphony of these different ingredients. And yeah, even more here in Thailand, they will, when you look at the traditional medicine, it is a variety of herbal medicine where cannabis is a part of. So again, you know, there is many options for using it, and for different kind of, there's already so many different kind of ailments where it can be used for, right?
Yes.
So, but yeah, if people want to sleep more, then, you know, what is designated as an indica variety is more likely to be used. And when people need to use something that on a daily basis, they probably want to have something that is more sativa-like in the designation of the effects then of cannabis. And that's where we see that there is different effects that we know already for a very long time from different varieties of cannabis, and they apply to patients in hospitals just as much as they applied for any recreational user in Amsterdam, for example. So there's a lot to do. There's the very exciting research with singled out cannabinoids, and then to bring them back together again, sometimes also very interesting. But there is definitely a place for the natural herbal medicine. Let's not forget that. That is, it is. I always have to quote a judge. It was a DEA judge called Francis Young that basically had a hearing over many years, and in '88 basically came out with a judgment about medical marijuana. They were talking about this time, and he said something very simple, that as under medical supervision, this plant is one of the safest known substances to mankind. So he even specified it's more safe than many medicine and foods we consume daily. So of course, from a scientific perspective, the first thing you look at is the toxicity, how toxic is poisonous is something, a substance. And then we see that THC is the safest substance you can think about. You can eat it like food and it will do nothing to you. And the thing is, the doses that you really need is very, very small. So you will never ingest that much anyway. So it's super safe. With CBD, where funny enough, people think, oh, that doesn't make you high, so that's safe. If we give that to children, that's okay. We see that that in very high doses can be toxic to the liver. So again, you know, we have to be very realistic about cannabis and cannabis medicine and the different ingredients. But the thing where people are most fearful about the variety of cannabinoid that makes people happy, basically, this is the most safe one we've up till now, and it has been for thousands of years. We've just heard funny stories for a very long time for various political and money reasons, because this herb, this plant, is a big competition for a lot of pharmaceutical products. And but at the same time, let's not forget, the mission first of all is it can help an enormous amount of people in society that are suffering right now, like all these children with severe epilepsy syndromes, where we know already, if you give them CBD, that the chances that they will be normal from one day to the next day. from the moment you give it to them. And
Yeah.
more and more we are discovering how much we can help people that are suffering, and so for me that is my first mission also. And here in Thailand, in a Buddhist society, this is also very well understood.
Yes.
For Malaysia, I think it's time to start to rediscover the herbal and traditional medicine of the medicine man that existed also in Malaysia. I remember reading some scientific papers about from the 19th century, where there's all kind of local herbal healers that knew very old, ancient, traditional medicinal recipes and how to treat the people. And also in Indonesia, here in Thailand, and I'm pretty sure it existed in Malaysia before also, it was just the food. Here in Thailand, we have the famous boat soup, the koi tiao rua, which traditionally contains cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, sometimes we forget that if we go back just before the Second World War, there was no such thing as a drug war, and hemp and cannabis was all around and was a natural thing and a good thing.
Yeah.
It is just this crazy story that has been pushed around the world, and this is a whole different kind of political story about the United States and various countries that were first of all involved in the opium wars here in Asia in the 19th century. And in the beginning of the 20th century, we saw that, you know, it was these countries that made the first international treaties about, first of all, opium, but cannabis was added to these treaties already early in the 20th century. So in 1924, we see it disappear in many pharmacies in Europe. And there was even cigarettes sold with hemp inside in Europe up to that time. So, you know, history is beautiful. And I think that's what we try to do also with our museum, is to show people their own history that they're forgotten, that they, you know, the first times I was talking to people here with my father in Europe, they were laughing at us like we're crazy. But the same thing here, you know, it's like they didn't realize that the traditional Buddhist medicine contained so many recipes that with cannabis inside. It's like it's a rediscovery of your own history, which is beautiful, you know, and very powerful, because Thailand now has the opportunity to say, okay, as a country, this is also a part of the revival of the use of traditional herbal medicine. And then if we look in Europe and United States, we see that basically some chemical molecule mafia controls the whole drug market, and all herbal medicines are don't have any access, are denied any access to the market in Europe as a medicine. So you cannot make any medical claims about any herbal stuff because yeah, it's a multi-molecule medicine right away, and to go
Yes.
through the
Yes.
procedures you have to go through to become an official medicine is just
Yeah.
impossible. So, but if governments like the Thai government in this case can choose and say, okay, but listen, you know, we have also our traditional medicine, then most of all they do the international treaties allow medicinal use and traditional use in that sense, and it fits perfect. You know, there's a true revival of Thai traditional medicine going on, and for me to meet all these professors and doctors and talk about what they, you know, and figure out what they know, and at the same time feed them also, yeah, maybe sometimes, yeah, stuff that makes them excited and happy, because yeah, it's beautiful, it's wonderful to help people. And So about the whole drug thing and that it's illegal, and you know, that's just something that existed for the past 70, 80 years. Before that, it didn't exist. But you know, it's so many generations that learn to think about something in a certain way. There's a good example. I forgot who was the scientist who did this experiment, but it was an experiment with monkeys in a room. And in the room, there's a banana hanging on the ceiling, and there's a ladder. So the first thing the monkeys do is go climb up the ladder and try to get that banana. But the moment they want to reach for that banana, they get sprayed wet with cold water. So you know, they all get confused and start pulling down the other monkeys. So nobody not to go for the banana, because every time somebody is reaching for that banana, cold water is sprayed on them. And so they don't allow any monkey at a certain moment to go up that ladder and reach and get that banana. And the strange thing is, if you take one monkey out and you replace it by a new one, the first thing that will happen if that monkey goes up there is that, you know, they will pull him down. And if you replace all the monkeys in the room, still none of them will go up and reach the banana, even though they were never sprayed wet before. So this is the psychology of not only animals, but we also have this psychology where we not dare to think or to reach or do something, because we have learned now from generation on generation not to go up that ladder, not to reach for that banana. And we are conditioned, we are scared to do something which is sort of, we don't even know why we do certain things. And the same thing with cannabis. We don't really know why this plant is illegal. You know, we just know that it's the status quo, that it was like this for a long time. How long, most people don't even know. And that this plant was vital and important, and it's been one of the most important plants for mankind. That is a story that you can present in a museum and in books, and that's when people start a realization process that certain things they didn't learn in school was not in their history books, and they forgot. They forgot about their traditional medicine. They forgot about their own history. So
I agree.
For Malaysia and your organization, I think it's beautiful to go into the libraries, to go into the old books, to go and talk to the old people, and see what the remnants there are of this traditional Malaysian medicine. Because also for the Malay government, it would give opportunities to do a lot more than what for example in Europe is possible, because we basically sealed out any natural products as medicine.
Yes, actually, you gave a very good comparison just now about the monkeys. I really love that, you know, explanation. You know, people over here, they've been confined by their boundaries of the mind, you know, because of the indoctrinated knowledge of the past. You know, people who've been saying that cannabis is dangerous, it can make you crazy and all of this. So that's basically what's stopping a lot of people here. But I know when you were saying, you know, Thailand and India, for example, have very rich history, and they today have classified cannabis as traditional medicine in Thailand. And in India today, they are selling, you know, over the counter as Ayurvedic medicine. You know, they even have TAC variants of products, which is being sold right now, you know, in Madras and many parts of India. So the government over there has, you know, classified hemp as a plant that they can use to make products and stuff. So, you know, they are buying the raw material from farmers and selling it to companies to produce extracts and stuff like that. So one thing that is for certain is that you know, most of the medicines has moved into the pharmaceutical industry, and you know, where they isolate certain compounds to treat a particular disease by following a dosage that can lead to it, that can how to say confirm the patient is actually getting better. But when it comes to cannabis, it contains so many different compounds, and as you said, it should be full
Yeah,
spectrum.
so what I do here in Thailand a lot is like in the Thai government and Thai people are very focused on extract from these flowers. So they want to go to preferably say a single ingredient and stick them in a tablet because that is medicine. That is what is. But also before in Europe and in America, doctors made the same kind of thing. Oh, how can you call smoking medicinal? The
Yeah.
interesting thing is that they cannot say that here. The interesting thing is that the true traditional medicine was not some extract that that they make now with solvents, but basically it was the natural flower. And what I try to teach also here is that many times we are talking about wine and everybody wants to take the alcohol out, and what's so important about alcohol from wine? There's a lot more in wine than just the alcohol. And the
Yeah.
realization that that this is a reality, first of all, that traditional medicine is flowers. Second of all, in traditional medicinal use, especially in Asia, but everywhere in the world, so all these doctors, all these Western doctors were also very wrong, but even Asian doctors can also not say that smoking is not medicine. Because fumigation, which is basically smoking, has been a part of traditional medicine for thousands and thousands of years. So there is no science behind saying such a thing. And what we see also is that dosage, for example, and also the effect coming up much more quickly is much easier with fumigation. So vaporizers, basically a system where you don't even create smoke. They can be very efficient medical device. And then from the historical perspective and from the traditional medicine perspective, fumigation, smoking of herbs as medicine is the most logical and was definitely part. All of the traditional doctors, medicine here in Thailand, even from there's a special department from the government which is called the Department of Traditional and Alternative Medicine.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is a serious thing. This is very beautiful that Thailand has such a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Actually,
I don't know in Malaysia.
Malaysia
But
has the same. Yeah, Malaysia has the same, the Traditional and Alternative Medicine Department, but cannabis still falls under the Dangerous Drug Schedule 1, so is still classified under the National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Department. So, it's still considered a drug and controlled as a pharmaceutical. So if it's not made into a pharmaceutical product, you can't bring it in. So, what Malaysia is trying to do is, of course, just like Thailand and India, and what you're saying, you have to learn your history. I know in Aceh, for example, they are using cannabis still today. They've been using it for hundreds of years, cooking it. The grandmothers used to cook cannabis with the beef and everything. So, in this region, in the Malaysian, Indonesian, Thailand, we have very rich roots
many
of using
thousands of
cannabis.
years. Yes.
Yes, and we should go back to the traditional medicine ways. For example, kratom. You know kratom, right, Alan?
Yes, I do
Kratom,
know that. Yeah.
yeah, kratom is used in Malaysia, especially in the northern parts of Malaysia, for many hundreds of years. For during plantation, most of the paddy farmers when they
More
plant
likely,
their
much longer than that. So,
more likely much longer than that.
and then
So
again,
they
what I also stretch here is that when I talk about looking at cannabis as something that is a dangerous thing, we see again first of all, if we talk about under medical supervision, and I want to repeat with this DEA judge Francis Young that said in 1988 already, under medical supervision, cannabis, marijuana is one of the safest substances known to mankind. And why is that? Because you can go into a pharmacy right now And most of the things that you can get in there are toxic. In fact, very toxic. It means that if you take 20 paracetamol tablets and eat them in one time, you can kill yourself. Definitely, you will create a lot of damage in your body, right? So, in fact, this number, we call that the LD50 ratio, which is like, it means like lethal dose 50, where 50% of the test animals die. And with the LD50 for paracetamol is 20. And many other drugs, especially like chemotherapy for cancer, we see that the number can be 1.5, 2. So even if you take the prescribed dose from the doctor, you can die. That toxic is this stuff. And then if we look at cannabis, we look at that. Then what is the LD50 ratio of that? And then we find that they could not determine that. They say maybe somewhere between 20 and 40,000.
Yeah.
So compare that to, so that means that, you know, the other most safe thing they have in the pharmacy is salt water.
Yes.
And this, you know, the safety also, again, history. My family was good friend with a professor of Harvard Medical School, Dr. Professor Lester Greenspan. And he always had these stories of also where he referred back to history, where during the American Civil War, before they started using opium, it was cannabis tinctures that were used. And they knew already, you know, if they give a couple of bottles to a soldier way too much, you could dose it very high. And all what would happen is they would pass out, you know, and but there would be no damage to the body or anything. So, and we know that now, right? Basically, cannabis, marijuana is non-toxic. Alcohol is the most toxic drug there is. In fact, alcohol is more toxic than heroin. When I talk with doctors and nurses, and I have to talk also about addiction, then addiction again is a very difficult subject. That, you know, cannabis is just one of the many products where people can use as a way out, or can use as a product to be addicted to. So again, you know, the danger there when you are giving it something like this as a medicine does not exist. Under medical supervision, this is the most safest thing that you can give. And what these patients need is not a situation now where they have to break the law, run the danger for arrest and even more suffering. They need safe access, right? And if you have cancer right now, or your child has epilepsy and is having seizures every couple of hours, what do you want? You want it now. You need it now. So there is enough educated doctors right now in Malaysia and in Asia that are getting well informed about this subject. It is just that politics and new laws and regulations, they take time.
Yes.
That's what we see here in Thailand also. It's like it takes a long time before it really happens. So I just hope that I know that Laos is looking at Thailand, also waiting in a way to see what they will decide. And then I can understand fully that the Malaysian government also is very curious what the first moves are going to be here in Thailand. And then what you I think is logical to expect is the same thing. Very rigid rules at the beginning, where there's not too much easy access still, and it's all in a test phase, in research phase, and only government organizations, and with an enormous amount of security, you know. And this is logical, right? Because it's the first time they start to use this as a medicine. Compared to opioid medicines that are basically already prescribed everywhere, it is ridiculous the amount of rules that exist in many countries for cannabis. but it is a sort of logical because they just switch. They just have to make sure that also the UN and nobody else can complain that they're too liberal, or that it, instead of medicine, can be abused. So for government, we have to understand that they are very conservative and slow with taking decisions about this,
Yes.
and that's also normal, you know. We
Yeah.
and
Sorry.
but slowly they will learn that it's not so difficult, and it's not so different than any other, you know, regulated medicine. It shouldn't
Yes.
be. And you know,
What they call, as you said earlier, I think it's very important that we remove the fear aspect from the people about cannabis. And I think, like what you said, you know, the education, people are knowledgeable. You know, doctors understand, you know, how cannabis works now with a lot of information being out there, especially because of the internet. You know, MASA as an organization recommends that the government do prioritize the patients because they need medicine as soon as possible, especially the you know, critically ill patients like epileptic patients, cancer patients. They have no other options but to try a medicine that could save their life. So I would recommend the government to look into that, and as you say, take it slow. But MASA recommends, would like to mention here that our organization is actually pushing forward one clinical trial, just one specific clinical trial, which is based on MAPS in the United States to test, you know, how cannabis THC can treat major depression. And in their study, we will understand that the high feeling is basically just a transition between from beta state of mind or the conscious state of mind to alpha frequency or the semi-meditative state of mind. We feel that through this research, it will end the fear or stigma behind THC, and will
yeah.
also allow for more cannabis strains to be accepted. So that is our suggestion. But okay, before we end today's interview, Alan, I really want to thank you for your time. I have two more questions actually.
Okay.
Um, the First of all, could you comment a little bit about what type of strains, how many strains they are basically, because there's a lot of crossbreeding strain happening right now. You know, people are making new strains. I think the
All the time.
numbers, yeah, it could be anywhere from 80,000 to 100,000 different strains. Is that right?
Yeah, you know, there's not so much difference at a certain moment, yeah, because they are all copies or mixed up something again of what exists already. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of, you've got a lot of data around. So right now, you could say that there's so many so-called seed companies and names, and you know, everybody that mix two plants and make some seeds, they have a new name and a new variety. And yes, it's a new variety. I mean, if it's really new, that's interesting. I like progress. You know, I think development is very good. There's some very exciting new varieties in the world that I'm also happy to go and play with, and use again for to work with our material in the Netherlands. But you know, for for, for as far as I'm living in Asia, and I don't really have a business or a company here. For me, it's much more interesting to help, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture, where I can make sure that they do a big thing about the preservation of existing genetics that in Thailand, and I can help them with that, and I can help also with a selection of foreign genetics that are also going to be necessary to be used here, and I can help them with certain standards. So I I enjoy that a lot, and but right now I'm not involved in any business situation here in Thailand, and that is good because it is not crystallized out. And I do like what you're trying to do in Malaysia with the registration of official medicine. It's very good to do the trials. At the same time, I think you should be as smart as the Thais and figure out your own traditional medicine history and make sure that it's a part of your of Malaysia, because it is. It just needs to be rediscovered. You just have to be proud again of where you come from in that sense, you know. And where you come
Okay.
from is part Chinese medicine, is part Ayurvedic medicine, and is part Buddhist medicine. And this has been a tradition that existed, you know, to very, very ancient times, you know, and, and, and it's, we just forgot not so long, you know, we only forgot about 80 years about
Okay.
history before. And it's time to rediscover that. In Malaysia, I think that will be beautiful and exciting, you know, to
Yes,
rediscover.
I agree. To rediscover the, I mean, we have a lot of history which has been you know, close and you know, just thrown out because it doesn't support the law that we have, which is cannabis is considered a drug. So when there's any information saying that it's medicine, they just erase it, right? They don't share it. Especially now, I do you know, we would love to look up in the libraries in Malaysia, you know, for all the old books, especially the medical journals of
Yes,
the past. Yeah, you know, I
yes.
would love for our team to do that, and you know, maybe we can share about it in the next video. But anyway, I think we'll move to the final question from my side, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, everybody is concerned about the hype of, you know, when you speak about decriminalization, legalization of cannabis and all of this, they're afraid of what's going to happen to the society, you know, what's going to happen to the people, how the children are going to be affected. You know, a lot of questions are being raised right now because of this decriminalization, which is something the government is proposing. And also, you know, the legalization of cannabis, which is what we're trying to push forward. So, from your point of view, in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and you know, many countries that you visited who have cannabis as medicine or as recreational, and has also decriminalized most drug use. What is your opinion? I mean, how are the people there adapting to this? I mean, is there any cause for concern if Malaysia follows that?
The, the first thing we have to understand that we are talking when we talk about sick people and doctors, you know, we for sure the police cannot help and jails also don't help. So we have to make a clear distinction between medicinal use and recreational use, first of all. But if we learn from science, basically, that we were wrong about all the so-called dangers of this plant, then it's time to also reconsider these drug policies. And to be honest, I did talk for many different kind of students, and also law is part of my yeah, repertoire in that sense. And you know where you have to be most afraid of this instrument that society is using to deal with substances in society. This sounds very complicated, but let me say it again. We, the people of, for example, Malaysia, use the law, prohibition, we make something illegal in this case, to control substances. And substances mean drugs that we now make illegal, people cannot take. And what we find again and again is that this instrument of prohibition creates more problem than the drug themselves. That's one. Number two, if we know that cannabis is safer than alcohol and any other chemical that the kids are doing now anyway, secretly, especially the ones that are not easy tested and found in when they get stopped and drug tested, we push them to chemicals that are more dangerous. So again, you know, prohibition itself, the illegality itself creates a lot more problems. And then a herb, a plant product like cannabis, which is the least dangerous of all. The Dutch government, my government in the Netherlands, decided in 1992 already to put that even in law. We have in the Dutch law a separation between so-called soft drugs and hard drugs. And the soft drugs, they are cannabis and flowers and hashish, which is the resin, right? And all the other drugs are considered hard drugs. Like this, they already created a situation where the police could put a priority for hard drugs and didn't care so much about cannabis. So, and this is very pragmatic way of looking at things, but it's much better than just putting people in jail or creating, in fact, more problems. And the youth is never going to be safe, because the youth is going to experiment or come in this experimental phase of life anyway, where they will drink or where they will take drugs, will experiment. And this is in every culture in the world. This is universal. So now is the thing is like, how do you deal with that? And, you know, make sure that if they use something, that it's not such a danger. And the realization, first of all, I could say you should look at a professor, Gabor Mate. He's an expert on addiction. And when it comes to addiction, we have to realize one thing, that it has a lot to do with social psychiatric damage that people have, and people that are addicted to certain things, they just try to be normal. They try to sort of balance out problems they have, and this can be literal pain also. So again, when you talk about drug problems, or people having problems with drugs, then we see that the situation is very complicated to understand in the first place. But everybody can understand that the police and the jail is not going to help this person. And then if people use drugs, we prefer them to use safer drugs and don't use more dangerous drugs. So again, that's why governments should reconsider their stance about cannabis, because if that could be an alternative in society for especially young people, that's better than all the dangerous chemicals they are using today. And we have to rediscover our history to understand that we have been afraid of something that we don't really need to be afraid of, because there's people being addicts to computer games, there's or the internet itself. There's many ways that we can have problems in life, but up till now, for the last 12,000 years, this plant has helped mankind in so many ways. We built pyramids with it. We sailed the world because of hemp fibers. But it was a food, it was fiber, and it was medicine. And if we realize that this plant is one of the most special ones, it helped mankind in so many ways, that if we realize that we realize also that today it can do the same thing, and it does. Because if you see what happens to people that are really sick and they get it, this is a true miracle. And so, for Malaysia and the rest of Asia, I hope that cannabis as a medicine will be available soon. And of course, it's time to also reconsider cannabis as a recreational drug, because maybe the laws up till now are too harsh and out of proportion, because we forgot what is real, and we thought that with the wrong instruments we could stop problems. In fact, this instrument creates more problems. This is just science. It's not even politics. It's not a political opinion I'm talking here. It's like you can put 150 lawyers in front of me or government, and I can write something down, and nobody will have an answer. And that only means that nobody really thinks deep enough of what the effects are of certain policies. But then again, certain people that are educated about drug policies and prohibition and its effects, they can write you a list of all the negative effects of what we are doing now. So at least government should look at doing something different.
Thank you very much, Alan. I think that is one of the most enlightening interviews I've done so far. It's a real great pleasure to have you on the interview today. In fact, I was trying to contact you for a while, especially after we interviewed Ira. We just wanted to share more about cannabis to the people. Okay, I think that's the end of our interview session for today. So before we say goodbye, is there any message you would like to tell to the Malaysian public or to the viewers that's viewing at home?
Well, I've got many friends and people I love in Malaysia. I definitely want to say hello to them, and to the people of Malaysia and the government. I wish you all the best, and I hope soon you can help many people that are suffering today, and make your country more beautiful than it already is.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much, Alan. So,
Okay.
all right, guys. For those of you who's watching at home, thank you very much for joining us today. I think you guys can learn more about Alan from his companies, Hempflax, Sensi Seeds, and Hash Marijuana Hemp Museum. He's a very influential person. He and his father, Sir Ben Dronkers, in the cannabis industry, and it's a great pleasure to have him on board today. So guys, if you have any question, please drop it at the comment section below and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And that's all for today. Catch you guys in the next episode. See you.